American Single Malt, a rising star in the whiskey world known for its innovation, craftsmanship, and distinctive flavors. But what actually is American Single Malt and why should you be drinking it? Let's start at the beginning. American Single Malt Whiskey is a relatively new category in the whiskey world, with its roots tracing back to the craft distilling movement of the early 2000s. Inspired by traditional Scotch whiskey, craft distillers began experimenting with malted barley and various barrel finishing. Barley was the primary grain used to make whiskey for centuries before the Pilgrims settled in America. However, 2-row barley was tough to grow due to our soil and climate, and despite switching to 6-row barley, corn and rye were already so readily available, and whiskey was, at the end of the day, a way to utilize surplus grain. American Single Malt would have to wait. The first recognized American Single Malt came in the 1990s from Steve McCarthy's Clear Creek Distillery in the form of McCarthy's Oregon Single Malt Whiskey. However, significant cost in barley as well as general market appeal, industry support, and even standardization prevented it from achieving domestic popularity. One of the key milestones in the history of American Single Malt was the formation of the American Single Malt Whiskey Commission in 2016. This organization was created to establish, promote, and protect the category of American Single Malt Whiskey, ensuring high standards and authenticity. They ensure that every bottle labeled as American Single Malt adheres to specific guidelines, maintaining the integrity of the category. Now that we know where it comes from, how about how it's made? American Single Malt Whiskey is made from 100% malted barley, distilled at a single distillery. The process begins with malting the barley, where it's soaked, germinated, and dried. This malted barley is then mashed, which converts the starches into fermentable sugars. Fermentation follows, where yeast is added to the mash to produce alcohol. The resulting liquid, known as wash, is then distilled in copper pot stills. American Single Malt is typically distilled twice, capturing the rich and complex flavors of the malted barley. After distillation, the whiskey is aged in oak barrels. Unlike bourbon, which requires new charred oak barrels, American Single Malt can be aged in used barrels, allowing for a wider range of flavor profiles. The aging process imparts additional flavors and character to the whiskey. American Single Malt comes in a variety of styles. Each distillery brings its own twist, influenced by local ingredients, climate, and production techniques. Some American Single Malts are peated, similar to Scotch whiskey, giving them a smoky flavor. Others might be aged in different types of barrels, such as sherry or port casks, adding layers of complexity and depth. Some of the most well-known American Single Malt brands include Westland Distillery, Balcones Distilling, and Stranahan's. I hope this has been a great introduction to American Single Malt Whiskey. It's a category that's still young but full of potential, offering a fresh and unique experience for whiskey enthusiasts. Let me know below what your favorite American Single Malt is. Since many of them don't leave the state that they're made in, you might introduce somebody to something new. Cheers.